Morning, Greg. What's up, buddy?
How's it going, man?
So good. So good.
What?
Said it's going so good.
That's awesome.
It's awesome, man.
Let me get a drink quickly.
Yeah, please.
Ah, the joys of working from home.
I'm telling you.
This doesn't happen very often, but it is. I'm glad when I can.
Right?
Yeah. How are you?
Man, really good, buddy. Had some good things happen in my life since we last spoke. And I am working it right now, man.
That's awesome.
Yep. I went from having unlimited free time to now building a personal brand with an agency out of New York City that's coaching. I now have 5 different types of media coaches working with me. So I literally just got off a Zoom chat with one of them, and it's so much homework. Okay, we want you to do this, create this content, create this video, and it's just like, whoa, but it's all good.
I know that feeling well. So
Do you?
yeah. It can also be a little overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for speaking to that. That's the excitement plus overwhelm simultaneously.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, man.
You too.
This is my home office / studio.
I like it. I like the guitars on the wall there.
Drums and all nonsense in here. Yeah, but decided to do this at home where the only distraction might be the dogs barking rather than people knocking on my door every 3 minutes.
I get that. So you get the big bolt locks on those doors. Hey, do me a favor. Can you bring down your laptop a little bit? Your camera?
Like that?
Yeah, there you go. A little more center.
Oh, we're going to use video as well?
Yeah, I'm going to repurpose the content in the future, but right now, this week, only the audio will go up on iTunes.
Okay.
Bring it down just a little more because I want to get your Source Toad logo on your t-shirt. Because I got to brand you, bro.
Yeah, move some. Get this out of the way because I'm messing with my chair.
There you go.
I can move my chair back there.
That looks good. My job is to make you look and sound your best.
Well, I didn't do my hair and makeup for this because I didn't think we would be.
I'll send over a girl. She'll be right there. Very cool, bro. All right. So just to represent you to the show and what we're doing here. First 100K podcast. My audience are the majority. I believe 90% of entrepreneurs are struggling to make their first 100K, yet they're pretending that they're not. They're pretending like they're already successful. They're putting on a show on all their social media, the highlights of their life. Meanwhile, they're going back to lives where they're broke, they're lonely, they're unhappy, they're miserable, right? So we want to just speak to that, just get real, get right into it. The way we do that, Greg, the way you can add the most value to the audience is to just be transparent, to share like your struggles, your brokenness in the beginning, how you were doing that, pretending, putting on masks, whatever, because we all do it. And the more vulnerable and real you are about it, the more they connect with you because they're going to go, wow, this guy, Greg, is super successful, yet he struggles with the same thing as me. Well, if he can do it, I can do it. And it gives them that permission to kind of step forward in their life. Was that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a second here.
You got it, buddy.
Wow, that's better. Maybe stand up for this, actually. So.
All right, cool. All right, any questions or comments for me before we start?
No, I went and I did some I ran some numbers and I did some research about what my first actual year was like. I just wrote a book, so some of the stuff is on the forefront of my mind anyway.
Nice. That's cool. Well, thanks for representing yourself to that. That is powerful stuff. All right. Let me just get this lined up so we're good to go. Put you over here. Recording. Boom. All right. And listen, bro, you and I know you've done a lot of these types of appearances. But it's just two guys having a conversation about what it's really like, the mental game of entrepreneurship, right? Because that's where we get mind deft, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what slows us down. So we're just going to get into that. The intro is already pre-recorded. I'm doing a whole new intro. This company in New York has me recreating everything. So we're just going to start with today my guest is, okay? And then we edit in the intro. So quick housekeeping, Greg. To clarify, you grant me, Joseph Warren, unlimited worldwide distribution rights to this recording, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, sir. All right, awesome. In 3, 2, 1. Today, our featured guest is Greg Ross. Let me do that again. I got to make you sound your best. All right, 3, 2, 1. Today, our featured guest is Greg Ross Munro. He is the CEO and founder of SourceToad, an award-winning software development firm specializing in hospitality and travel technology. Greg has been coding since he was 8 years old. He's a third-generation programmer, which is crazy to even think that's a thing. He's a frequent judge and mentor for startup competitions and hackathons, and treats SourceToad, his company, like it's one of them. Greg spends most of his days making sure clients are happy and programmers have plenty of snacks. I get that. So you can find Greg at sourcetoad.com. That is sourcetoad.com. Greg, welcome to the show. Go ahead and fill in some of the gaps in that intro, would you?
Well, thanks for having me. I don't think there are a whole lot of gaps there, man. I spend most of my days just making sure the clients and programmers are happy, and the occasional project manager, but they're much more normal, so a little easier to handle them. Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that shows up for me immediately in what you just said there, leadership looks like Startup Nation. When you get to the top of your company and you start to scale it and you build that team underneath you and you start outsourcing to them all your weaknesses and you stick to your superpower, and we're going to get into it with Greg, find out what his superpower is. What's left for you as CEO of the company and founder is to show up and get them what they need to do their job better, faster, and cheaper. Greg?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, I think that most of the time what you're trying to do is in leadership is a service position, is a position of service to the people who work for you or the people who are underneath you. Those people are coming in and working for you every single day, or they're coming to work for your company, or working on whatever your goals or objectives are. And as a result, you owe them something. And that is to be their servant. And servant leadership is a concept that's been around for a long time. But, it is, I do what I do almost as much for my clients as I do for the people who work for me. And I think that can really show if you're spending the time really trying to help these guys, trying to help them grow in their careers, trying to help them grow in themselves, and basically not just unblocking them in a kind of project management sense, but allowing them to be all they can be.
I love that, right? And I love where you just went, right? Because personally, I'm a man of faith. We may have some difference in our belief systems, but what you just said, servant leadership, you're right. It's been around for over 2,000 years. It's a biblical principle, right? To show up as the servant, like Jesus Christ was the servant leader, personified. So I connect the two, bringing your faith into your business and stop being bipolar about everything. If you believe one of your values, your core values is to be a servant leader, bring that into your business and be unapologetic about it. So Startup Nation, I love Greg just went there. Greg, take a minute before we get into the hardcore content of entrepreneurship. Take a minute and share with us something personal about you that very few people in your business life know.
I'm not sure that there's too much I don't share with them. I'm pretty transparent. We have the kind of office where, I bring my dogs in. My wife comes in and works in the office sometimes. We go and we drink beer together and we play laser tag. I'm sure there's something, but I don't really have a lot of time to be.
What's maybe one thing you haven't shared with them? Something you've held back because maybe you thought it wouldn't make you look good or avoid looking bad or something like that.
I definitely have a few things like that where, once or twice, not so much recently, but definitely in the past, when payroll was going to be tough at one point. I knew that we'd be able to do it, doing things like, I haven't done anything as risky or crazy as go to a casino, but I have made payroll by 12 hours, and sometimes I have. The worst thing I ever did is I took money out of the fund for my wedding that I was planning to make payroll. I literally put it back like 5 days later, but at the time, if I told anybody, that would have freaked them out pretty badly.
Are you kidding me? Especially
No.
your wife.
Yeah,
Jeez, bro, that's awesome, man.
The wife was
what?
okay with it as well. So
Startup Nation, this is what we're talking about. I'm so glad I just dug into that question with you, Greg, because you just shared something, man, right? That vulnerability of building a company and being there for your team to pay their salaries, right? Because they have bills to pay. They have their personal lives. They're raising families. And as a good leader, like you're like, I'm going to sacrifice my wedding fund, right? My marriage fund to make sure that they don't have to sacrifice in their life. That's what leadership looks like. All right, let's get down to business. My audience loves context, Greg. Approximately gross revenue, how much did your business do in the last 12 months?
5 million-ish, probably.
Congratulations. That's freaking exciting, brother.
Yeah.
And what are you on track for in the next 12 months?
Well, a lot of things would depend on some of our strategy, but we plan on doubling in the next 10 months, in the next 10 months.
So exciting. That is, man, I love it. You and I go back for years here in Tampa, and I've watched you grown. You've watched me stumble a lot, and hopefully I've grown a little bit as well. So, I just love that. I love seeing other brothers in the fight, in the game of entrepreneurship, winning, and you're winning. All right. How long did it take you to make your first 100K?
I went back to my accounting to open up QuickBooks, ran some reports. I made a spreadsheet, so I have some relatively disturbing numbers.
I like disturbing.
So this is my 10 years at SourceCode. So I started the company in 2008. Great year to start a company. So in September it'll be 10 years. So
Got it.
I had a pretty good set of things to compare by. Mm-hmm. The first $100,000 in revenue took 806 days, 2.2 years. Yeah.
Got it.
Pretty bad.
I love how specific that is. Startup Nation, nothing happens overnight that is of value, right? So if you're going to build a sustainable, scalable company like Greg is doing, get to that million mark, 2 million, 5 million. It took him 2.5 years of fighting and scraping to do payroll. That's what it looks like. It looks like sacrifice. What shows up for you in that, Greg?
I mean, I looked at the numbers. We were a very different company. It started really as a consultancy for me, where I was basically doing most of the programming myself. I was building teams around, small projects. It was more just a way not to have a real job, to be honest.
I get that. I'm guilty.
To go work for someone else. Yeah. An entrepreneur is somebody's prepared to work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week, right?
For someone else, yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely think that I fell into that category of do anything to just work for myself. And I think that's because sometimes if you're creative, if you have a broad set of skills, it's very difficult for you to imagine fitting into anywhere else. And I got pretty lucky in the start of my entrepreneurial career. I sold a small company earlier on in my early 20s, and then went eventually back to grad school and moved around the world a little bit, but ended up at an investment bank thinking that's what I wanted to do. And when two of the big four accounting firms came to headhunt me, I went to the principal and I said, "Hey, do you have any advice? Which one of these two giant companies should I go work for?" And he said, "Well, you should go start your own company." And I said, "I would love to, but I haven't really kept a whole lot of that money that I made from that first sale. It was very small exit, just enough to buy a car and move to Japan and all this other stupid stuff I did." And he said, "Well, no, I'll give you the money. You should go work for you should be working for yourself." And
what was going through your mind at that moment when he said that he wanted to invest in you?
Yeah, I mean, it's good for the ego, but it's also it's scary because you're out of excuses, right? Like normally to go and work for a big company in a safe environment is, it can be problematic. You might not like it. It might be soul-sucking. You might learn a lot from it. You might find it incredibly supportive. But to go out on your own is very scary. And if somebody says, "Well, one of your excuses is that you don't have enough padding or funding to go and do it," and somebody removes that for you, the only other excuse you have is, "Well, I'm kind of scared."
There you go.
Or I don't believe that I can do it. So, it's a mixture between being terrified and being feeling very proud. So,
what was the dominant one there? Was it the being scared, being fearful of what that looks like, or was it just the lack of confidence in yourself that you could do it?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was either of those specifically. I would say that, and I'm not saying it's about fear of failure. It's just if you're going to take someone's money, if you're going to go out there and try and build something with it, it's almost fear of disappointing them. Worst comes to worst, I could go get a job somewhere else, right?
Sure.
I think I'm reasonably employable, but that fear of disappointing somebody who's put their faith in you that's a big deal.
It's also a great driver, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a huge driver.
Because when you want to quit, when you wanted to give up, like you think, shoot, they invested in me. I can't quit. I can't give up. I gave my word. I gave my commitment.
Yeah, there's a downside to that too, which is there have been situations now in my life since where now we've invested in other companies and we've started little side spin-offs and things like that, which were funded. And sometimes without money, sometimes with my money, sometimes with other people's money. And taking on some sort of funding and then actually going to be successful, or even getting through your first 2 years, those are small odds. And a lot of the time, you will end up not making the correct decision, which is to cut your losses and move on because you have that fear of disappointing somebody. And, I've had a hard conversation with a couple of people that we've given money to say, I knew the risks going in. This wasn't a loan. This wasn't a mutual fund. I knew what I was doing. You need to understand that as well and walk away from this. It's not going to work. We made mistakes or we didn't understand what was going on or whatever it was. We should learn from those failures and we should sometimes just walk away. That same fear can be a driver to actually point you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of small odds, right, as far as building successful companies, right, why do you think that 90% of entrepreneurs are struggling to make it to that first 100K milestone?
Oof. There's a lot of reasons. It depends on the kind of business. If tech startups are really my wheelhouse, so I can speak a little bit more to them.
Sure.
And market fit is really tough for those kind of businesses. Having a good idea is easy. Executing is harder, is significantly harder because trying to go out and build something, build a tool, build a service that can scale and works well is tricky. But even more tricky than that is some of these businesses are so new. Some of the kind of the ideas behind what you're trying to sell never existed before, and as a result, it's really tough to go out and find a good market fit. And I read something about some of these big Silicon Valley guys who have raised tons of money, and then what they've they kind of maybe they got lucky on the first round, but on the second round, some of them have spent 2 years on market validation before they start the business. 2 years. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think I could just quit doing everything I'm doing to go and spend 2 years and trying to work out a good market product fit, and then still have time and energy left over to go and execute on that. So, I think that in my space, it's really, really tough to find a scalable product that you can sell, or even a service that is going to really resonate with a particular audience, especially.
So let me ask you this, Greg. Right, there's two schools of thought here in what you're bringing up, in my opinion. Right, the first school of thought is go create an idea and then go find the market fit around that product, which, as you're saying, in the tech space can take 2 freaking years. Right, yeah. That's time you'll never get back. Right, and that's with the hope that you're going to find a great market fit. And then there's the other school of thought, which is go find the audience, the people that you want to work with, and then ask them what they're struggling with, what they're suffering with, create products around those that they're willing to pay for. Yeah. Which do you think is the better approach, and why, really quickly?
So the one thing that I did not think would work was the way kind of Bloomberg sold his first Bloomberg machines, right? Which is I read his autobiography, and was like, there's no way this will work, because he said he went to a bunch of guys and he said, hey, I've got this is the box that I'm going to build. Would you like to buy one? I'm taking pre-orders. And he got a whole bunch of people say yes. He had nothing. He had no product. And then used the pre-order money, to go and build a thing, which is pretty ballsy and impressive, right? So a few years after reading that, we had another little startup that we were running, and I thought, okay, well, fine, let's give that a shot. And so it was going to be a restaurant ordering system. So we went to 10, 15 restaurants, demoed kind of some stuff on paper for them. And like 7 or 8 of them said yes. And then I kind of sucked in my pride, and I said, well, we're taking pre-orders right now. It's only going to be X amount of $1,000 to pre-order this. And they said yes. I mean, so basically what we had was validation from the industry we're in, for a product that we wanted to build. And as a result, we were able to get cash up front. I don't know how common that is, but if you can do that, that's the way to go.
I love that, right? And I've heard this saying before, is your clients, especially your early adopters, are your best investors. Yeah. Rather than going and getting outside capital and then you're on the hook, right? And you're in debt and you have that commitment and that monkey on your back, so to speak. Go out and ask the customers, what do you want? Like, here's an idea I have. Would you pay for it? And then when they say yes, like Greg said, Startup Nation, ask them for the pre-order. Like, go for it. If they're not willing to pull out their credit card, don't believe that that's what they want, right? Because that's what it is. Are they willing to put skin in the game? If they give you the yes, the pat on the back, that sounds great. That's awesome. Sure, I would want one. Great. We're taking pre-orders. It's X amount of thousands of dollars. Are you ready? Are you in?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, if they say yes, run with that product. You already have market validation. Now just scale it. What do you want to add to that, Greg?
Well, I mean, when I was looking at our numbers from our first $100,000 that we did in revenue, the one thing I noticed was lots and lots and lots of clients. Just tons of small projects. I think our the mean when I ran it, the average of the whole thing was something like, I don't know, it was like $145. Most of that was because we were breaking up, $1,000 bill into 10 installments, and then hosting fees, and just like craziness, where it's way easier to go and get um, a medium-sized company to write you a 20, 30, $50,000 check for something than it is to get 10 small companies to write you a $500 check. And that kind of mentality also takes a while to kick in. And that, I think that's why you see a lot of service companies eventually, if they're successful service companies, will pivot at a later point into being a product company, because what they've been able to do is use their service clients as their initial investors slash padding slash market validation all at the same time.
I get that. So Startup Nation, what Greg just dropped right there was a big wisdom explosion, right? It takes the same amount of effort to go land the big high-paying clients that it does to get to take on all the volume of all these little nickels and dime type clients. And Greg, what showed up for me in my own personal weirdness is a personal example in my dating life. I realized, right? And you already just got the bridge that I just built, right? But Startup Nation, like, I used to show up and do all this work to attract girls that I wasn't even that highly attracted to. But I realized it takes the same amount of effort to go over to that one girl who's like that 10, that supermodel that I want to date. It almost took less work to go and speak with her rather than all these girls that were like 6s and 7s. And I hope that doesn't offend any of you females out there. But it's the same thing in the startup space. Go for your ideal. Just go for it. Ask. Put down your pride like Greg did. Get humble. Ask for the pre-order. And sometimes you'll get it. It's fantastic. So, Greg, I want to go back to the struggle really quick. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on this. Take us back to year one. You just started SourceToad. You're struggling to meet payroll. You're pulling money out of your wedding fund, your marriage fund. Just the humiliation, the humbleness, the vulnerability as a man, as a guy to have to do that. Take us back to that time in this business. Paint us a vivid picture and tell us that story.
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't as hard payroll-wise in the first year because I had so few people. I had a contractor or two, and then one or two full-time employees over the first, maybe 3 at the highest point before it made that first 100K. None of us were making a lot of money, obviously. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do when you have student loans for 2 master's degrees and you're making $30,000 a year, right? So
got it.
That's tricky, especially when you're being offered jobs on the other coast for, hey, come work for us. I mean, starting salary would be $250 a year. It's like, oh God, what am I doing? That's the kind of thing that, even to this day, I still kind of wonder if I made the right decision.
What kept you in it? What kept you in the mud, in the game, when you have that temptation to go make $250,000 a year working for someone else on the other coast?
I think I moved around a lot. I'm born and raised in South Africa. Moved here with my parents after my first year of college, and then after I sold my first business, moved to Japan for a long time, and I think a big thing for me was staying close to my friends and family after, building a life here in the States, and not wanting to have to kind of redo that all over again. That was a big part of it. And I think the other part of it was, to be honest, some bloody mindedness, some just sheer being stubborn, which is, you don't want to quit. And I'm not saying in some sort of heroic way. I'm just saying almost a pathology. So,
So
you know,
let me dive into that for a second, right? Because earlier in the show, you said that you invest in companies where sometimes you look in objectively and you say, "Hey, this isn't working. We both knew what we were getting into. We took a risk. Now it's time to
eh,
just let it go." How did you know that it wasn't that scenario? How did you know to push through and stick it out and that you would win?
don't confuse what I say as what I would want to do. Right? My advice is from only from learning lessons the hard way. It's never, and even sometimes the lessons that I have learned, I still don't ever put into practice. So do as I say, not as I do is a lot. It's a lot easier. It's also easier when it's not you in the business day to day. As you're an outsider, kind of giving advice to a young startup or a new entrepreneur, it is a lot easier to say, "Well, I made this mistake. Don't make it." And surprisingly, about 50% of them take the advice. The other 50% eventually just make the same mistakes you do, and learn that way.
Got it. So
I,
bring me back to that question, right? How did you know that you needed to stick with it and not quit? How did you know it was going to work?
I didn't. I honestly didn't know if it was going to work or not. Um, I I had safety in my fallback plans. You know I'm not a millennial, but I'm close in age to millennials. So worst comes to absolute worst, I could have moved back in with mom and dad um, and started all over again with a safety blanket. I think really what you're I don't want to say you're afraid of failure, but there's America is a country that really rewards risk taking and entrepreneurship. Um, Most countries that I've lived in, if you're out doing something super risky, people question you a lot of the time, saying, "Why are you doing that?" Well, I mean, there's not as much upside from a cultural standpoint to actually go out and take these risks, because you might be putting your family at risk.
Mm.
You might be not you might not be doing something that is good for the culture at large. You're focusing. You're kind of being selfish. You're focusing on you building something that you can then generate all the reward from the risk that you've created. And so there's a huge amount of positive feedback in America, culturally and socially, for people who go out and take risks. So there is, to some degree, that fear of failure, because it'd be a reduction in status. It would be it could be humiliating. But also, you start to tie your self-worth up into it. You say, one of the things that makes me who I am
Mm.
is what I do for a living. And if I'm the boss and I built this, then that's a huge part of who you are, and you kind of don't want to let that go. It's tough.
Mm. I see that as a two-edged sword. Sometimes that can really help you to stick to something that is going to work. It just needs more grit, more effort, more time. And then the other side of the blade, the sword, is that it keeps you in it too long when you should have let go of it because it's not actually going to work.
Yeah, I think there is kind of a hidden positive in there, which is um, that it really takes you screwing up a lot before you learn to do what you do well, right? So people say fail fast. Well, it's great, fine, fail fast. Screw you, man. Like I have only failed really slowly and tragically over time. I mean,
Same. I so resonate with that. It's
so
a nice soundbite though.
yeah, I've run a couple of companies into the ground before. I've done things on my taxes which I thought were fine because of revenue coming in. I was going to be able to pay them, and because of because a contract not being drawn up the right way, ended up losing my car.
Mm.
I have I have gone into situations that could have ended in like a lawsuit uh, because I didn't enforce some piece of a contract, or I didn't force my client to sign a contract. So, every single one of those little lessons, you can't learn that in an MBA. Um, you can't learn it in an entrepreneurship degree. You
Mm.
can't learn that really from reading books, and you can't learn it in working for an enterprise company. Those are skills that you don't get anywhere else. The only way you can learn those skills is by going out and starting something and then making the mistakes.
I love
And
that. What shows up for me is the Mike Tyson quote: "Everyone has a plan until you get hit."
yeah,
Right? You got to step in the ring to see the punches coming at you. You can't just talk about it from outside of the ring. It's
yeah,
totally a different vantage point, would you say?
absolutely. And like I said, I don't think I've ever learned an easy lesson in my life. So, um,
Welcome to humanity, bro. All right, so let's get into superpowers. I talk about this on the show a lot, Greg. Like, what is that one superpower that if you stop doing everything else, like this is the thing you're made for, you naturally shine at with just some practice, you become the expert in, and you got to outsource everything else in your company. And when you started doing that, stuff started to work. What's your superpower, Greg?
um, well, I know what my superpowers aren't. I am not the best programmer in my company. I'm actually the worst programmer probably now in the company. Everybody else is by far a better programmer than I am. To the
So
point where I'm
let me pause you right there. So Startup Nation, did you hear what Greg just said right there? He is the CEO and founder of a really successful programming company, and he is the worst programmer in his company. Like you
well, yeah.
don't have to be an expert at the very thing that is your core product. You just got to create a team of experts around you. Please continue, Greg, on your superpower.
So I think that one thing is knowing what you're good at, and one thing, and knowing what you're not as good at, and then hiring people um, who are better than you. Um, the worst thing I see all the time is people hiring people who they think they can control, or they can, keep an eye on, or they're not going to take their job or whatever. I try and hire people that would be able to eat my lunch all day long. That's it. I think that the two things that I'm really good at doing is I'm good at talking to very smart people and being able to communicate that to everybody else in the world. Like
Got it.
I'm reasonably conversational to almost everybody. I'm
Mhm.
relatively upbeat and happy, and if you want to talk about sports or your kids or whatever it is, I'm happy to chat. I'm a chatty guy. But if you also want to talk about the high level complexities of data, of asynchronous data transfer and like large scale replicating databases, I have a pretty decent background in that stuff, and I can actually give a fair amount of input into things like design architecture and systems analysis, because I just did it for a long time. And it's probably not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I really like bridging those two worlds of
Mm.
the highly technical, and then the very very big picture. I enjoy straddling that and explaining it to people.
So to clarify, what I'm hearing you say, Greg, is your superpower is you are the master communicator, master translator in your space, in your
Yeah,
company. Is that
I think
correct?
that's fair. I've got an analogy for about every single piece of technological um, system out there.
Listen, one of the number one reasons why companies fail is because of poor communication.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're the master communicator right there, that's the winning superpower. I love it. It's fantastic. So, Startup Nation, what is your superpower? I challenge you all the time with this question. What is that superpower, that one thing? Get to that as fast as humanly possible. Outsource everything else. Sometimes it takes time. Year one, you're doing a lot of all the rest. We got it. Right. But how fast can you get there? That's where your business is going to start to win. That's where your life is going to start to shine. Greg, take us. What was the number one fear that really messed with your head back then in the early stages of this company?
Hmm. Um, I think it was probably um, getting actual product out the door. Um, you know, for almost my entire career, I've been work for hire, and so you have to go and you have to talk to a client. You have to sell them on the idea of you building something for them, and then you have to actually go and produce the goods. Uh, in the early days, you get like a $3,000 or $4,000 check, which is was a lot of money back then, and now you've got to go and produce a payroll system or insurance quoting tool or whatever it was we were building in the early days. And as a result, because you're kind of thinking small and you're kind of hiring small in some ways, or you're outsourcing to, less costly resources. You don't have enough time to, and there's only one of you. You don't have enough time for like quality control. You don't have enough time to read over every line of code.
Got it.
You can't, you're not 100% sure about every single thing that's going on because there's just too much for one or two people to do. Mm-hmm. And so you're terrified about, especially as a software engineer, you're terrified about something going into a client's hands. They start using it. They're like, oh, this is okay, because they don't know any better. And then it turns out that it's actually a pile of crap, that what you've sold is that something you've done is not good. That idea of, I really want to put something that's quality out the door. But in the early days, it was really hard to do that with, you got 6 clients, you're acting as project manager and lead architect on all 6, and you got an assistant and then a bunch of like outsourced guys. It's just terrified that something's going to get hacked, or that you haven't done all the due diligence. And that's why I think I would spend probably 100 hours a week working to get, just to like make sure that things were going out the door.
Got it. Startup Nation, do you have the same fear that Greg had, that your product is not going to meet the client expectation? Or even if it does meet the client expectation, their expectation is so low that they're actually happy about getting a crappy product? Like, is that your number one fear right now? Like, and what I would say is this: if that is your number one fear, here's what you do about it. As fast as humanly possible, make your product suck less. Right? First, get your product's going to suck in the beginning, right? Because your budget sucks, right? And with a low budget, you get low talent, right? I think that's what I'm hearing you say, Greg, right? Yeah. So you only can afford a certain level of talent as fast as humanly possible. Like, first off, accept it's going to suck. It's not going to be great, but good enough is good enough sometimes. Get it out the door. Make more money, hire better talent, and constantly iterate, and make it suck less. Before you know it, you'll be where Greg is, your $5 million company, your products freaking rock, your industry wants it, they're willing to pay top dollar. That's what I want for you, Startup Nation. Greg, what was the best advice you've ever received in this business?
That sometimes in life, there are just people that you have to cut off. I know
you got to cuddle? Cut
off.
Oh, cut off. Totally different than cuddle.
Yeah. And I know that's terrible, but, sometimes in your life, there's people who are toxic, or who are, just difficult to be around, or make the same mistakes over and over again. And if nobody on the planet has so many friends that they don't want to, they don't want any new friends. They don't want personal relationships. Nobody is, thinking, oh, I have too many friends. So letting employees or friendships or relationships you have in some way go is tough for everybody.
I just recently heard this, right? And I've applied it in my own life, right? So what I'm hearing you say is, listen, sometimes look at the relationships in your life, especially in your business, and say, is this working or is it not working? Yeah. Right? It's that simple. Take out all the emotions, all the feelings. Is it working? Is it not working? So you don't have to make people wrong about it. And I have done this as well, Greg, like taking years of not cutting off someone in my business that was not working, and constantly cuddling them instead of cutting them off, right? And I paid the freaking price for it. And that's what I'm hearing you say. And like, this is so powerful to really just get that. Is it working? Is it not working? What do you do with it? So here's the strategy, Startup Nation, I've learned. It's kind of like a relationship, and I'm going to keep tying this into relationships, because if your personal life isn't working, your business isn't going to work, right? So like in personal relationships, I used to end my dating relationships the same way, the typical guy approach. I would end the relationship and break up with the girl, and it would leave them with their heart torn out, and I was just not a good human being, right? And I would just move on and cut them off, and that left them incomplete. And what I learned was this, and it wasn't too long ago, I started implementing this. And now I'm friends with my last 3 girlfriends. Like for the first time in my life, I have good friendships with these girls I dated because I didn't have to break up with them. What I did is I did what's called a completion and creation conversation with them. And I believe you could do this in your business. Greg, tell me what shows up for you in this, right? So completion and creation. You sit down with the person, you say, listen, we're not ending anything. We're just completing this part of our relationship because it's not working. Now let's talk about creating what our relationship looks like going forward. And that may look like you not being in the company anymore, right?
Yeah.
So let's create that. What shows up for you in that?
Well, I mean, I think that I can't remember who said it, but it's always kind of stuck with me, which is that you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So if those people are your coworkers and your family and whatever, and it's strikingly true. If I think about the 5 people I spend the most time with, yeah, I kind of start to become an amalgamation of those 5 people. And everyone's got a different 5 people. So you got to choose those people really carefully. You got to choose them you got to choose people whom you want to be like, you know, you want to, and that can often mean spending less time with people who are, you know, less like what you want to be. I don't know. I mean, it's a sensitive subject because you always kind of think that you are the defining aspect of yourself, but you're not. It's really about who you choose to spend time with. It's about you know, what you choose to read. It's about how you choose to spend your time. And you know, so those core 5 people and what you create with them is extremely important, and is, you know, it can be, when you actually look at it honestly, it can be very, very difficult. You can have to have a conversation with yourself and say, am I creating the right kind of person in myself by spending time with this person, or by keeping this person as an employee? Whereas, or another slightly more positive way to look at it is, you know what, I really like that guy. We should spend more time together because I think there's a lot I can learn from him. Or, you know, I really want to, you know, my girlfriend is a really like warm person, and I'm not as warm as I can be. I'm going to spend more time and try and learn about that from her. So, you know, everybody around you is a potential teacher and a potential influencer. And so just pick good people.
I love it. So Startup Nation, Greg is just dropping the wisdom here, right? This is so powerful. The 5 people around you, you are going to be impacted by. You're going to be influenced by your environment. So choose your environment wisely because it's not biased. Negative people will influence you negatively. Positive people will influence you positively. You might as well choose positive people around you in your circle. Greg, share with us one of your daily habits that helped you to break through the 100K milestone.
Well, I think the 2 things that helped me a lot for growing the business eventually were trying to fire myself from little jobs more and more every day. So I'm doing a better job. I'm doing 10 years later, I do a better job these days. But at the end of every quarter, I write down all my responsibilities, and I try and pick 2 that I'm going to get rid of. The more and more I can focus on strategy, client success, and you know, building my people, and the less time I spend on project management or accounting or whatever kind of like day-to-day jobs that I should actually not be doing, that's better for me. It's better for the company. So that habit of trying to at least kill one thing that you're doing every quarter or every year, whatever it is extremely useful. And so it's a good habit I've picked up. The other one, which really helped me in the early days, but I have since stopped doing, was a 2-cycle workday, which is a really horrific thing that I did, but it worked very well, which was I would spend the first part of the day working in one location, my house, or when I had an office, in the office. And I would work from 9 a.m. till, I don't know, 5 p.m. or something like that. Then I'd take a break. I go do something like play squash or go to the gym or play video games or just do something for an hour that wasn't work. And then I would go to my second office. And then around maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and I would work by myself for another 6 hours, which is not healthy, right? It's normally a cafe or something like that. And I would go and I would put in another full day at the office, but not in the office. And that was a way that I scaled my business by just working twice as hard as everyone else was prepared to work. And I don't do that anymore. I mean, once in a while I do it just because I want to get my email cleared out or whatever it is. But that, I did that for almost a year and a half, that splitting the workday, or almost 2 years, and splitting the workday into two parts, and just, outworking my competition. Can you do that forever? No, you'll kill yourself. But I was 10 years younger. And,
exactly.
And a lot hungrier.
So what I'm hearing you say is all those millennials out there, right? All you 20-somethings who are listening to the show right now is the time in your life when you have the energy, you have the drive. What you don't have is the wisdom and experience, right? That just comes with time for all of us. So trust Greg's wisdom right now. Put in the time, right? This is like Grant Cardone saying 10x like your work hours, right? That's what Greg did. He split his life, took a break in the middle, and then 10x'd it by putting in, 7 more hours or whatever into his workday, and he outworked his competition. Powerful stuff. Greg, let's close the show on this. What is the one thing you want Startup Nation to know right now about building a successful business?
Start today. The sooner you start your first one, it's easy. You can go file some paperwork. You can go and try and do whatever it is, build something on your own, build it with a group of friends. But the sooner you start, the sooner you'll make those mistakes, the sooner you can learn from those mistakes, the sooner you can build your better second company.
Fantastic. Startup Nation, we are listening with Greg Ross Munro. He is the CEO and founder at SourceToad. You can find him at sourcetoad.com. He built his company from 0 to over 5 million in revenue. He's about to double this year. It took him 10 years. There's no way around putting in the time, putting in the work. There is no quick fix. There's only work hard, right? That's what it looks like. Greg, this is my favorite part of the show. Welcome to the hustle round. This is where I'm going to ask you 12 quick fire questions. You'll have about 3 seconds to answer each. Don't overthink it. First thing that comes to you. Are you ready, sir?
Gotcha. Ready.
Greg, what's your favorite sound?
Guitar.
What's your least favorite sound?
The chopsticks on the bottom of a donburi pot, which is, I know it's a very strange thing, but I really hate that sound.
Got it. Probably from your years in Japan. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A special effects makeup artist.
Got that. What are you most afraid of?
Ooh, I don't know. Lawyers.
Got that. For all my attorneys listening to this show, that was not personal. Just deal with it. What did you spend way too much time doing your first year in business?
Oh, smoking hookah.
Got it. What secret fear do you have about people?
That they don't like me.
Got that. That's very human. What do you wish you had learned sooner in this business?
Have a contract for everything.
Got that. What's a new habit you want to form?
Doing drills on the squash court on at least twice a week.
What's a new habit you want to break, or an old habit you want to break? Bad habit.
Smoking hookah once a week.
Got it. Pick 3 words to describe who you are now.
Bouncy, warm, and sometimes scary.
Pick 3 words to describe who you were your first year in business.
Overworked, panicked, and sarcastic.
Startup Nation, did Greg just describe you? Imagine sometime in the distant future, Greg, and there you are standing in front of your tombstone. Read to us what it says on it.
Here lies Greg Ross Munro. He specifically asked not to be buried, so the joke is on you.
Got it. And last question. If you could come back to life after you died, tell your family and friends only one piece of advice, what would you tell them?
Um, oh, I have no idea. I mean, I'm not dead yet. You told me not to overthink it, but I'm, I don't have a
If you
choice.
if you had that one thing, that one piece of advice for their life, for their existence, why they're here, whatever, what is that one thing you would want to share with them?
Um, Spend your time the way you want to spend your time. I mean, you know, do what you enjoy. Um, you can be as selfish as you want as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Got it. So, Startup Nation, we are speaking with Greg Munro. Greg, what's the best way for our audience to get in touch with you if they choose?
You can get in contact with me through our website. It's sourcetode.com. And you can always hit me up on Twitter at GregDRM.
Got it. And last piece of wisdom that you want to share. What do you got?
Um, yeah, I mean, thank you very much for having me on. The one piece of wisdom I would say is that, you know, hard work is really, really important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is like having intention behind what you're actually trying to do. If you don't have like if you don't go into every single situation, every single meeting, every single work session, not knowing what you want to get out of it, you're just going to spin your wheels.
Love it. Greg, thanks for joining us today, and I wish you peace, love, and your next 100K.
Thank you very much, sir.
You got it. Startup Nation, we exceeded our 6-month goal. We now have listeners in over 34 countries and growing. I want to double it. I want to hit 60 countries. We're changing lives. We're doing it by helping them make their first 100K so that they can have that time with your family, do the things you want, choose the life with intention that Greg is talking about. Go to first100k.com, be a partner in my show. Help me reach 60 countries and transform lives. I am Joseph Warren, and you were made for greatness. So stop being a wuss and start being a winner. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you right back here next week. God bless. Just raw and real, right? And those are thought-provoking questions like, what secret fear do you have about people? Like, we don't think about that, you know? You were the meaningful questions, you were right on, though.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. What can I do to help you, sir?
I'm good, man. We didn't talk about cruise ships or anything like that, but it was more about the first 100K, like which is completely appropriate, to be honest. It was tough. That first 100K, I'm like I pulled 2,973 invoices to do my little analysis on, and the highest invoice I sent out in those first 2.5 years was $8,430. To 8,000, and we made in the next 806 days. I just wanted to do some comparison. So the first 200 days, sorry, the first 800 days, first 2 years, we did 100,000. The next 806 days, we did about 500,000. So we multiplied by 5 in the same period of time, and then we multiplied by about 3 in the next 2 years, and we just multiplied again by double. You know, it gets harder and harder to build up those multiples, but it is interesting and kind of eye-opening to go back and look at this stuff.
Exactly that point. One thing my guests all share after the show is they're like, how valuable it is for them, just this experience of looking back on the first 100K and really just kind of representing themselves to what that was like and what they went through, because it's hard to, you know, go back there sometimes. We're like caught up in the now, and you know, they love that they can look back and just kind of be grateful and go, oh shit, I've learned a lot. Wow, I've been blessed a lot since then. My life has completely been transformed. And to really get that, and then to set maybe a clearer intention right now, you know, a clearer why, or to revisit the why you maybe forgot, you know, that you built everything on, and like, oh shit, I kind of got away from that a little bit. Let me get back to that, because that's my core. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's fine for that stuff to change as well.
Sure.
Like, I'm not sure. I don't think that I have the same intention of my business that I had when I started 10 years ago. My business was the point was to, do something that I would enjoy, that I have a lot of control over. And now, I don't want to like, being rich or like having freedom and all these kind of things would be nice. But really, like, my focus has become, I really want to build a good business. I want to build a good place for people to work. I think building a company that is a good company is an ends of in of itself. That can be the goal, to build a good company.
What about that? What if that was the vision, to be the best tech company in Tampa to work for?
Yeah, I mean, that's
something so simple.
I think that's a really appropriate kind of thing, and I think a lot of people don't. Even I didn't think that would be a goal. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would never have said, I want to build a place where people love to work. It's like, fuck you guys.
It's so mushy
you work
gushy.
for me. Yeah. But like, now it's like, what I've built is I built a place where I wanted to work.
There you go.
You know what I mean? You come around to our offices, it's that's what an entrepreneur does. They build a place where they want to work, and maybe get rich doing it. The other thing that was kind of interesting, looking at all these numbers. I know this is just, we're not doing the show anymore, but I did a graph and things just to see what it was doing, and it did this, and then like it hits a peak and then it kind of goes down because you hit a new kind of maximum that you're like, I can actually see like inflection points of like, well, I didn't know what to do there. And then like it keeps doing that, but these points are almost exactly like they start being like 9 months apart, and then they stretch longer to about 1.5 years apart, and then toward the end they're like almost 2 years apart. So
what showed up for you in that?
It shows that what's interesting is that I have to kind of reinvent the business every 2.5 years, roughly. And almost every year at the beginning, you have to reinvent yourself almost once a year, or every 9 months at the beginning. For the first like 4 years, it looks like every 9 months to a year. And then that kind of gets longer, but you constantly have to, just looking at pure revenue numbers, it stood out as a weird thing. And
it's very interesting because I hear 9 months, so I think of a woman having a baby, right? 9-month pregnancy. And it's like you have to rebirth every 9 months, like in your business. It's very interesting.
Well, especially at the beginning. And the only other thing is, like, just to kind of give you an idea of that people shouldn't give up. You can't mention this, I'm afraid, right? What I'm about to tell you is private between us.
Captain.
Yeah. It'll be announced at the beginning of August, but we just made Inc. 5. We made Inc.'s fastest growing list of companies in the world. So we're in America. So
that's pretty awesome.
The 5,000 list finally. So
see, this is what I'm talking about, man. Blessings, bro. And it was freaking 10 years of hard work. That's what blessings look like.
Yeah.
Weird way to present it, but yeah.
You are definitely I thought you were a Catholic.
I am. Why?
Because that sounds like a Protestant line of thinking.
Dude, listen, like, I am friends with all my Protestants, my buddies or whatever. You know what I'm standing for on my Broken Catholic podcast? This is like my vision. Unify Christians everywhere. Like, and I just recorded a new intro. The Protestant Reformation was 500 years ago, and like the things that Martin Luther stood for are no longer even relevant. Like, there's agreement now. We have more commonalities as Christians than we do differences. And we're still arguing over like self-righteous labels and high-level theology that doesn't apply to our everyday lives. Like, what the F? Why are we all so divided? Like, it's so stupid. So I'm standing for unifying Christians everywhere, right? It's one church. We all love God. We're all pursuing heaven. We love our families. That's enough. Let's go.
Can I recommend a book for you?
Maybe.
Do you read?
Yes.
Okay.
What's reading?
Okay, it's readings for nerds.
Exactly.
There's a book called Fantasyland.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's about kind of like how America's become, unlike the rest of the world, like people here like live in, everything is themed, and the Disneyfication of the world. And
Disneyfication, great word.
But large portions of it, he talks about the American, like the distinctly American take on Protestantism. And I was raised as an Anglican, which is, Protestant Catholic light, whatever. So
got it.
But I think you'd find it interesting. He talks a lot about how people thought the Catholic Church was really the nuttiest group of, and that's why the Reformation kind of started. But if you look at it today, it's probably the most sane it's like a source of reason in the modern American Christian world. So before you start trying to reunite these people, let's maybe talk about making them Catholic.
Wait, let's talk about what?
Making them Catholic instead.
Well, listen, that's exactly what it is. Like, I'll mess with my Protestant brothers, and it's not to antagonize them. It's literally to say what's so. And I said, listen, as a Protestant, you're just a Catholic in denial. Like, that's all it is. You were born until 500 years ago, the entire Christian world was Catholic. Like, you need to get that, right? Absolutely. And it's just a breakaway. So it's like, listen, come home. The differences aren't there anymore. Like, the main three pillars of Lutheranism, they're not even relevant anymore. Why are we still divided? It makes no effing sense to me. So that's what I'm standing for. So, like, the podcast is, I'm the number one Catholic voice in America because I'm talking about the shit no one else is talking about. So that's kind of what we're building on. I have 3 quick bold requests of you, if you're willing.
Yeah, I have to head back to the office in a bit because I've got a meeting, a guy coming in
Got it.
30 minutes. What's up?
This will take 2 minutes. So first bold request, as soon as we're done with this or after your meeting, can you do a quick 60-second video testimonial about your experience? Hey, this is Greg Ross Munro. I'm the CEO of SourceToad. I was just on First 100K podcast with Joseph Warren. Here's why you need to listen.
Okay.
Just kind of like that from the heart. And then second bold request, who do you think would make a great guest on the show in your circle of influencers? Same exact thing. 2-sentence email introduction, copy in like 4 or 5 people, whoever comes to mind for you. That's how I bring my guest on because they're all based on referrals. And that's how I know I'm going to get great content. So would you take those 2 requests on?
Yeah, sure. Could you do me a favor
buddy.
and just shoot me a brief email with them because I'm literally just going to pick up my stuff and walk out the door. And if you send me an email, I will get to it today.
Awesome. Perfect. Third bold request, and this is just from the sushi meeting that you were at with myself and our boy Gabe. You had mentioned you have a great co-working software technology that you wanted to give to us.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to represent you to that and take you up on that offer and say, how do we execute that?
Yeah, I'd probably need to get it dig it out of cold storage. And
I think that's what you said.
And that would probably mean setting up some time for you to come around and maybe for us to show it to you while I've got some people sitting who can do that. I'm heading out of town tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. How about this for a to-do item for you where'd my mouse go? About Tuesday the 31st, shoot me a message. Just put a reminder up for Tuesday 31st. Reach out to me and send me an email, and I can drag you around and show you what we've got and see if it's something that you might find useful.
Sounds good, brother. All right, man. Love you, brother. Talk soon. God bless you.
Thank you.
See you. Your show goes live this Thursday, FYI. So share it with your peeps, all right? See you.
Will do.